Welcome back to another edition of Best MMA Picks broadcast. Um, I'm JD, your host today, and we are going to go over this card. It's a Fox Sports 1 card. Johnny Hendricks versus, excuse me, Johnny Hendricks versus Stephen Thompson, Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Big Rig Hendricks versus Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. Um, so we've got kind of the medium-sized card, Fox card that they actually had originally planned to be a UFC pay-per-view event, but it will be held in Las Vegas, and it will be featured on Fox. So it's a freebie, another freebie, which we do like, but not quite as stacked of a card as what we're used to. But we still have some pretty decent fights on here. A lot of fresh, new faces. Took me a while to really break this card down. A lot of tape to look at. I've looked at most of the tape for the undercards and the prelims, and most of the main card fighters I know pretty well. So let's just get down to business. I want to keep this one short and sweet. Hopefully, get under 20 minutes this time. So we'll just go real quick. First fight on the UFC Fight Pass prelims, we have Artem Lobov versus Alex White. Lobov was a semi-finalist, I believe, on Ultimate Fighter. It was a TUF, I believe the European TUF. And he's fighting against Alex White, who is actually primarily a striker. But he's more of a boxer than anything. And the interesting thing about this guy is that he was actually, in his last fight, he was using more of a Muay Thai stance, which completely goes against his, orthodox style of boxing that he normally uses in his fights. So Lobov has kind of a mixed record, 12-11 versus Alex White, who has a 10-2 record. And it seems to me like Alex White's a little bit more of a well-rounded fighter. He has some of his wins coming by KO, TKO, submissions, rarely going to decisions. So this guy is a finisher. His last fight, he finished a guy with a first round TKO, I believe it was. And same goes for Lobov, who likes to finish guys on the feet. He has a wicked striking, but he has kind of poor fight IQ, in my opinion. And he also has really poor takedown defense. So and he just doesn't throw a whole lot, which he should do more of, throwing more. It's like he's kind of like this one trick pony where he kind of goes for the KO, and if he doesn't get it, then he obviously loses. So, we could see a KO here for sure. I don't think as smart of a fighter as Alex White's going to lose this one, though. I think he's going to probably be the busier striker here with strikes per minute at 4.2. I think he can also take the fight to the ground if he gets rocked. He has that ability to be able to take guys to the ground and submit them. So I see him pretty much beating Lobov everywhere here. So I'm going to go with my prediction for Alex White to beat Artem Lobov by this submission. Moving on to the next fight on the card, we have the heavily promoted Mickey Gall from the Looking for a Fight series with Dana White, fighting against a fighter that nobody really knows much of anything about, Mike Jackson. And to me, this is just I feel like this is just a WWE promotion. I mean, it's like they're trying to amp this guy up. And, obviously they're giving him this gimme fight that's kind of a throwaway fighter, that they're going to kind of basically promote this Mickey Gall guy who's not really that good. He's just kind of he's almost amateur level, in my opinion. I mean, he did impress Dana White, and they were about ready to leave, the area, and now all of a sudden, this guy is basically they're pulling this guy out of nowhere, and they're going to put him in the UFC. So the odds on this one are just absolutely insane, as are some of a lot of the other fights on the card. But Mike Jackson is a 10-10 fighter, I believe, in his amateur record. So both these guys are pretty much making professional debuts. I mean, Mickey Gall has had one professional fight, and in his professional debut, it was the one in front of Dana White, where he impressed him with his submission win. But really, these guys are both very inexperienced fighters. It's going to be kind of interesting to see them on TV. But, just from all the promotions and stuff, I think they're just giving this one away to Gall, and I think he's going to take it pretty easily, probably in the first round. And I wouldn't be surprised. if he really sucks, though, maybe it'll extend out and he'll finish the guy in the second or third rounds. But I could see this one being a real quick finish, and then him calling out CM Punk or whatever the hell they were trying to promote there with that. I think it's kind of silly, actually. But, obvious pick here, Mickey Gall to defeat Mike Jackson, probably by a decision or by second round stoppage submission. Next fight we have Noah Lahat versus Diego Rivas, and Lahat is actually an Israeli fighter. Very rare that we've seen any fighters from Israel in UFC. He actually is a very highly decorated fighter with a black belt in second degree black belt in judo, and he also has another black belt. I think he has a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as well. So the guy has a really strong judo base, and he also has the ability to submit guys on the ground as well. Pretty good grappler, decent striker, although he does leave himself open in the pocket. He has been vulnerable to counter strikes, and he does kind of have a questionable chin. Was defeated by first round stoppage. His actually was in the first round against Godofredo Pepe in Brazil. He wasn't doing too bad starting off the fight, and then he just got surprised with the flying knee. His next two fights, though, he's definitely rebounded, defeating Steven Seiler and Nicholas Backstrom, as we can see here, and definitely had a huge advantage in those fights, particularly from the clinch, where he can work guys and just throw them with his judo, getting him down to the mat where he can exercise his BJJ skills. So I think that, he's definitely got the advantage here in this fight. I definitely could see him getting rocked at least once here, but the most likely scenario here that I see happening, which the odds makers have this one set at negative 300-ish for him. One thing that I did notice with Diego Rivas is he tends to be very vulnerable when guys get hold of his back. And I could completely see this guy getting suplexed by Lahat just because he's such a highly decorated judo guy. And this Rivas guy, as soon as you get the hands around a guy's waist, he's so easy to take down. I mean, literally just like throwing a baby around the room. You can look at some of that footage in my actual playlist that I have on YouTube. But my official prediction for this one is for Noah Lahat to defeat Diego Rivas by a second round submission. Next fight, we have Ray Borg versus Justin Scoggins, the Taz Mexican Devil, versus Justin Scoggins. Both these guys have both had, they've been defeated in the UFC. They had kind of that upset defeat, and then they kind of both rebounded from their defeats. Both of these guys have very similar records. Both are very high-level grapplers. And the busier striker out of the two of these guys would be Justin Scoggins. He throws at almost 3 times the rate that Ray Borg does. Ray Borg tends to take the fights to the ground. He's got a very, very strong grappling base. Likes to smother guys, get them up against the cage, take them down. He actually likes to pick guys up and body slam them, which we have seen several times in a lot of his fights. And he has the ability he's got really good transitions between, if he's off his back, he can attack, but he's also really good at sweeping and just completely reversing position on people just out of nowhere. Pretty slippery guy, really strong, and just very, he's got offensive BJJ. He's definitely, but I out of this fight, I see the guy with a slight advantage here on the feet being Scoggins with his karate base. But Borg definitely has an advantage in the wrestling department. And I definitely see there being, with that advantage with the wrestling, I could see this one going Borg's way. So I'm going to be taking Borg, who is definitely the favorite here, pretty heavy favorite, to defeat Scoggins by decision. We could see a finish here, but I highly doubt it. Both these guys are really tough, hard to finish guys. Next fight, we have Derek Lewis versus Damian Grabowski, and a pretty interesting fight here. Two heavyweights. Both of these guys come from championship backgrounds. Derek Lewis being a former Bellator champion and legacy fighting champion, whereas Damian Grabowski was an M1 Russian champion at one point, heavyweight champion. I think he held the M1 title for one fight, and then he fought against a friend of his who was actually also an undefeated fighter at the time, and he actually lost to another Russian fighter, I believe it was. But this guy is a tough ass dude. Grabowski he's never been knocked out. He's fought 22 professional fights in M1, and M1 has some tough ass guys in it. M1's produced guys like Rashid Magomedov, who is a very highly decorated hand-to-hand combat sambo fighter, and just a really good striker. This guy's not so much of a striker. In fact, when you watch him fight, he has not really much offense on the feet. More of his offense comes from when he gets guys on the ground and he chokes them up with like a north-south choke or guillotines. Doesn't really have an RNC, a good RNC. It's more of like submission wrestling style submissions with arm bars, triangles. So he's really good as far as when he gets guys on the ground, and he has this wearing style where he just breaks guys down and breaks their will. And Derek Lewis, as we've seen, he's a big ass guy. He tends to kind of fade if he doesn't get his first round TKO, which every single fight he's won has been by first round TKO. And so if he doesn't make it, if he makes it, if he doesn't get that first round TKO, he starts to gas pretty early, especially when guys get him on his back and get him on the ground. He really has problems with that. And most of his fights have not gone that way. He's either been KO'd or TKO'd, or he's TKO'd the other guy in all of his fights practically in the UFC. So this one should be really interesting because this Damian Grabowski guy, has taken some hard shots from guys, and he's just eats them. So my prediction here is for Damian Grabowski to defeat Derek Lewis by submission. And I don't know if it's going to come in the first round. I think he's going to tire him out the first round. I think he's going to probably weather a couple hard hits from Lewis and then probably get him on his back and probably submit him that way by like an arm bar or something along those lines. So very highly decorated submission wrestler. Next fight, last fight on the Fox Sports 1 prelims, we have Josh Berkman versus KJ Noons. And people might kind of make fun of me for this, but this one actually has fight of the night candidate potential written on it, in my opinion. Berkman is an old UFC fighter who's been around for a long time, he's basically got 40 fights under his belt, 40 professional bouts. KJ Noons has 19 professional bouts. So he's been around for a while, but not quite as long as Josh Berkman. KJ Noons was actually a Strikeforce fighter a couple years back before they merged with UFC, and he's primarily a striker. Josh Berkman prefers to stay on the feet, but he's a little bit more well-rounded than Noons and can take the fight to the ground and have an offensive game there if he so chooses. So odds makers have Berkman as a slight advantage, slight favorite over Noons. I probably tend to disagree with this one a little bit, although Josh Berkman, it's hard for me to take him as a favorite here. Noons definitely has KO power in his legs. He has a good head kick. He's head kick knocked guys out before, and he's definitely has finishing potential. Berkman has finished guys, but Berkman is on a slide. And if you look at Berkman's last 5 fights, I'm just surprised he hasn't been cut yet. And they keep bringing him back because Berkman the guy's old as hell, and he's lost practically every single fight the last 6 times. He lost to Lombard, which was overturned. But the thing that the UFC likes about Berkman is he leaves it all in the octagon, and he gives it his all. The guy, you think the guy will be down in the cards or whatever, and he'll come out with some flying wheel kick or something and hit the guy flush on the chin and, wobble him. And some of that stuff's pretty impressive and it's pretty flashy, but when it really all boils down to, Berkman definitely he loses, and he's on the wrong side of a lot of decisions as well. So I don't see a decision going his way, which is where I see this fight going. A lot of people would say that this one probably will have a finish to it, but I don't see Josh Berkman finishing KJ Noons. I probably see it the other way around, and it probably by a head kick. But more than likely, I see this one going all the way to the end, and I see both these guys having their hands raised at the end and the crowd going wild. So I'd like to make a little side prediction. This one's going to be fight of the night, and I'm going to say that KJ Noons, Josh Berkman's once again going to be on the wrong side of a decision. KJ Noons is going to get the better of the stand-up, and it's going to be KJ Noons by decision. So moving on to the main card, got Sean Spencer, Mike Pyle, Quicksand, and Spencer. Another guy on a slide, Mike Pyle, and Spencer's. Just want to take a look at one thing here. Mike Pyle has been on a slide. So he did have one win against TJ Wahlberger, and then he's just kind of had this string of KOs where his chin's kind of given out in a lot of his fights. If you look at a lot of these, he went on a 4-fight win streak, then he got KO'd by Matt Brown. And then after that fight, it just seemed kind of like, he beat TJ Wahlberger, but after that, he was KO'd again. So, I think he's got some chin problems, and hopefully his chin can hold up to a guy like Spencer. Spencer's a very technical boxer, and he's got pretty good feints, but very vulnerable to takedowns. So if Pyle wants to take this one to the ground, he could more than likely get this fight to the ground. Spencer does have some takedown defense. It's not the best. It's 68.52%, but it's good enough to survive at the professional level. And he tends to get his fights by decision. 67% of his wins come by decision. If Pyle can't finish Spencer and get on top, get the mount, or get his back, if Sean Spencer's back gets taken by Pyle, I see this one ending really early, and I see Pyle getting a quick sub. Spencer has been pretty vulnerable when he's on the ground, and he's been pretty easy to get to the ground, especially when he tires out. First round, though, we could definitely see Pyle getting clipped and finished. So this one's pretty much a coin toss in my opinion. It just depends on who gets the better of who first. And both these guys have weapons, but I think Mike Pyle has more weapons. I think he has weapons on the feet, and I think he has weapons on the ground too. And he also has an experience advantage here. And a lot of people are giving Spencer's coming in as a favorite here. Pyle's coming in as a slight underdog. I think he's a 1.5. So in my opinion, it's worth Mike Pyle as a dog here. And I could see Pyle winning this one, but man, it's hard for me to take Pyle with the way that his chin's been. But I'm going to go and I'm going to lean slightly on Mike Pyle to defeat Sean Spencer by submission. Next fight, we've got Misha Cirkunov and Alex Nicholson. This is a really interesting fight because it's just kind of another one of those throw me a bone fights from Dana White in the UFC. This Alex Nicholson guy is 6-1. I think he fights out of Island Fighting Promotions, and they just keep bringing these guys in with little to no experience. And I don't know if it's the UFC just being desperate or what, but Misha Cirkunov is the complete opposite of this guy. Misha Cirkunov is a Latvian wrestler with really high-level grappling. He gets guys to the ground, submits them, guillotine choke, arm bars, you name it. He's really high-level wrestler and submissions artist. He also has power in his hands as well. The interesting thing about this fight is Misha Cirkunov is literally a 10-1 favorite. And this Alex Nicholson guy has only lost one fight. And if you look at the way that this guy has won his fights, it's been really ugly. The guy is a terrible grappler. He has little to no takedown defense. The guy gets taken down about 10 times each fight to mediocre wrestlers. And somehow this guy he's a slippery, naturally wiry, naturally athletic guy that he's very strong, very deceptive strength.
very athletic. He reminds me of like a very, very, very raw and inexperienced Luke Rockhold. Looks like he's surfer or something and super athletic. And I guess he's a basketball player that went MMA. So, the guy's super athletic already. And he just gets lucky. I don't know if he just gets lucky with these TKOs, but it's like he's losing all of these fights, all these 7 professional fights that he's fought. I watched about 4 or 5 of them. The guy is losing in every single one of his fights, gets taken down like 6 or 7 times, and slips out somehow when a guy's got top control on him. Somehow slips out of that situation. He's got a blue belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but the guy slips out of, you know, slips out of trouble somehow, gets to his feet, gets his back up against either the ring or the cage. Most of his fights have been in a boxing ring, but he's had a couple fights in the cage. He somehow gets to his feet, and then he cracks a guy on the forehead, and just the guy melts. And that's all it takes. And so Serkinov has been TKO'd before. Um, he doesn't have a bad chin, but his chin is suspect to guys that have a lot of power. And so this guy is definitely dangerous. If it was a 5-round fight, I would say, man, this guy would be worth a play. The most likely scenario here, though, Misha Serkinov is going to definitely take this fight to the ground immediately. And I'm curious as to whether or not this guy is going to be able to defend the high-level submissions that Serkinov possesses. I don't think he will be able to. I think he's too raw. But he uses his BJJ in a defensive manner because he doesn't have much of a ground, offense. He doesn't have much offense off of his back, but he uses it in such a manner that he's able to get to his feet. The guy is really sloppy with his striking too. He takes really risky striking moves where he'll do spinning back fists and, spinning kicks and head kicks where he throws himself off balance and lands on his ass. It looks really ugly, but the guy somehow comes away with these wins. And it might be worth an underdog play on this guy just for the sheer luck factor. It's a terrible handicapping call, but the guy, I could see something really weird happening here with the way that the UFC's been, and this guy being a 7-1 underdog play, you throw $100 on the guy, you get $700 back. So, might be worth a look there. You can look at the footage. It's all in my playlist, but the guy is ugly. But the guy has massive power and he's naturally athletic. So, be very, very wary of this. It might be worth a play on the under. I don't know. I'm going to look more onto that. But my official prediction there is for Misha Serkinov to defeat Alex Nicholson by submission. Next fight on our main card, Joseph Benavidez versus Zach Makovsky. Not much for me to say here. I think that Joseph Benavidez, and I think everyone would agree that Joseph Benavidez will probably dominate Zach Makovsky on the feet and on the ground. The guy should probably be a champion. If it weren't for Demetrius Mighty Mouse Johnson holding the belt, I think that the next one in line that would be holding the belt would be Joseph Benavidez. I think he's a tough-ass guy. I think he's got legit one-punch knockout power. I think he could go up a weight class if he wanted to and do very well. But what I see happening here, I see Joseph Benavidez eventually wearing down and breaking Zach Makovsky with hard strikes, heavy leg kicks, heavy, takedowns and body slams. I could see Makovsky getting Benavidez down once or twice, but I see Benavidez getting the better of the scrambles, and I see him getting better Muay Thai, knees in transition. So Joseph Benavidez is a very, very fast and powerful striker, and I see him defeating Makovsky probably by a decision or TKO, but I'm going to go with decision here. Next fight, Ovince St. Preux versus Rafael Cavalcante, another guy on a downward spiral slide. Rafael Cavalcante has lost his last 3, I believe it's been, and he's looked absolutely terrible in the process. Just looked absolutely terrible against Cummins, and Ryan Bader. He just didn't do much at all. I mean, you can see the guy, I don't know what's up with him, but he got taken down 7 times against Bader and 8 times with Patrick Cummins. I think these matchups have been really bad for Feijiao, but Fei Zhao does possess that one-punch knockout power. Let's not forget he knocked out. He was one of the only guys to finish Yoel Romero. He knocked out Romero. Granted, Romero was fighting at a heavier weight class, but he did TKO Romero. The only win that he's had in the last 3 years, basically, is Igor Pokorjak, and we don't really have much to say there. I mean, that's a guy who's basically cut from the UFC. So, Fei Zhao looked really good in Strikeforce, and as soon as he came over to the UFC, he just kind of went downward. He had all kinds of wins in Strikeforce against mediocre competition. He had the win against King Mo, but other than that, it's just been pretty much downward spiral for him ever since the Dan Henderson fight, where he got defeated by TKO. He just went on this slide where he just looked like shit and continues to do so. And I see him being an easy victory here for OSP. I don't know that OSP is going to knock him out, but I definitely think he's going to get him on his back, and I think he could ground and pound him out or just beat the shit out of him in 3 rounds. And that's what I see happening here. I see Ovince St. Preux doing that and looking good while he does it. He's a decorated wrestler and tough to take down, and he's got pretty good striking defense. If you look at the differences here, Fei Zhao has an alarming absorbed per minute at 3.66 strikes, whereas you have a 1.95, which is actually really, really good for Ovince St. Preux. He's a little bit more technical, a lot more technical than Fei Zhao. So that's what my prediction is. I predict Ovince St. Preux to defeat Rafael Cavalcante by a late stoppage, 3rd round KO, TKO. Next fight, co-main event, Roy Big Country Nelson versus Jared Rosholt, the Big Show. Jared Rosholt, a very highly decorated NCAA Division I wrestler. I think he actually was several-time All-American. He's had a really difficult time integrating his wrestling into mixed martial arts, but he has the ability to get guys, push him up against the cage and tire him out. He's got ridiculous cardio. Something that Roy Nelson has actually suffered from is in the cardio department. Big Country Nelson has that overhand right that just knocks guys out, and that's kind of his one-punch knockout go-to move. That he gets guys with and he catches them, and people know that it's coming and they still get caught. So he's also got very underrated ground game. He's a black belt under Renzo Gracie for BJJ, and so but he's never really used that. We never really see him use that in any of his fights. A lot of guys don't want to get him to the ground just because of that. I think Rosholt has been around long enough, and he's got enough experience with MMA to defend some of the ground game and defend a lot of the offensive off the back type stuff. And so I see Rosholt defeating Nelson here. If Nelson can't get the early KO, TKO, I see him getting put on his back several times. I think Rosholt will look a lot better. Hopefully he's fixed some of that offensive, level changing and mixing some of the strikes with his takedowns to, make his takedowns more effective. But, I could see this one being really close. I could also see it going. I don't see Rosholt getting TKO'd by Nelson. Rosholt seems like he has a pretty solid chin, and I don't know that he's ever actually been finished. I don't think he has. I think he might have been finished once, if I remember correctly, but I don't think he's ever actually been finished by anybody. Oh, actually, he has. He lost to Alexei Olenek by a first-round stoppage. I don't know if that was really a clear KO, TKO, but he's actually won a shitload of fights in the UFC. He's won UFC level competition 6 times and lost once. So he's 6-1 in UFC, and this is a big step up for him. But I think Roy Nelson is actually on a slide, and I don't think that the wrestling matches are going to be good for Nelson. It's not a good matchup for Nelson. but he's actually a favorite here, and I see this one going the other way. I see it going with Rashault. So my prediction is for Jared Rashault to defeat Roy Big Country Nelson by decision. A very boring one at that. Last fight, Johnny Hendricks versus Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. This fight is going to be a really, really, I think it's going to be a pretty exciting fight. The big question here, really, this is the big question. Wonderboy Thompson has been rocked by guys before, and Johnny Hendricks has a legit one punch knockout power. Closes the distance very quickly. He has short reach, but he commits to his strikes 100%, 1,000%. And when he's coming in, he's basically a freight train. You better watch out, because if you get hit by that left, man, you're going down. Guys know this. Stephen Wonderboy Thompson can switch stances, so he has an advantage there. And the other advantage that he has is with counter striking, his speed, and he also has crazy front leg kicks that other fighters don't have. Lyoto Machida didn't even have the leg kicks that Stephen Wonderboy Thompson has. So there's a huge advantage there on the feet for Wonderboy. The big question here is, if this is a 5-round fight, which I believe it is he going to be able to survive 5 rounds with Hendricks? Yeah, I would say that he's going to be able to. And we've seen Wonderboy get rocked before, and he actually has been able to take high-level, highly decorated wrestlers down. Granted, Johnny Hendricks is a national champion, so he's at the highest level of wrestling, if not Olympic caliber wrestler. Stephen Wonderboy Thompson actually brought in an Olympian from Canada, Olympic wrestler from Canada. I forget the guy's name, but the guy is a legit Olympian, and that's all that he worked on with his camp was takedown defense, defending wrestling, and even offensive wrestling as well, and reversals. So I think Wonderboy is going to, I really want to take Wonderboy here, but I've seen the way that Johnny Hendricks has been training, and he looks really good. His weight cut looks better than it ever has. And something just tells me here that Hendricks is just hungry as hell. Both these guys are hungry, and I think either one of these guys could win it. But I think the odds makers are correct here with the way that they had the line set. And I think Johnny Hendricks definitely has an advantage here with his wrestling and strength. I think that Johnny Hendricks is at the strongest that he's ever been. And the way that he's been training, he just looks really good. And I think that that's going to really, you're going to see a different Johnny Hendricks. It's going to be picking up guys like Thompson and probably slamming them to the canvas in a very devastating and dramatic fashion. My prediction here, I want to take Wonderboy so bad. I really like the guy, and I think he's a great fighter. And, I may even play it personally. But if I'm to go with what my gut tells me, my gut's telling me here that Johnny Hendricks is going to get this one by a decision. I don't think that that's conducive to the UFC, though, and its promotions, because I don't think that people want to see Johnny Hendricks again. I don't think that they want to see him fight Lawler again. You got to think about this from a business perspective. Wonderboy is going to be more of an exciting fight against Lawler than Hendricks will be. People might argue me there. They want to see the third, the rematch between Hendricks and Lawler. Great, but I don't think that I don't think that's going to be as an exciting of a fight as Wonderboy and Lawler would be. I think the Wonderboy Lawler fight would be much more exciting in a 5-round fight, and so people want to see stuff like that, and it really gets people's attention. So we could see a head kick knockout here with Johnny Hendricks. I've never seen Johnny Hendricks get knocked out. I don't think he's ever been. He's got 3 losses, and I think they were early losses in his career. He does have the loss, against Lawler, and he has a loss against St. Pierre. I don't remember what his only loss was early in his career. It was actually against Rick Story, which was a unanimous decision, which is kind of crazy. He got outstruck by Rick Story and taken down twice. So he's actually never been finished. Johnny Hendricks has a solid chin, and we've seen that with Robbie Lawler and how many strikes he took from Lawler and vice versa. So my prediction here, Johnny Hendricks to get the job done. by a grinding decision on Wonder Boy. But I think it's going to be a very close fight. And if it's as close as it is, you may want to take Wonder Boy, because I think that the UFC will probably squeak Wonder Boy by on a decision if it does go to decision. So it may be worth the odds there. You're getting twice your money back if you do. And if it does go to decision, which I think it could, I think Wonder Boy is going to get the nod. I just had this gut feeling. So if he doesn't knock him out and it's close, I think Wonder Boy will get the nod over Hendricks. I think Hendricks has been on the wrong side of every decision. If you look back, he's been on the wrong side of everything, and I think nothing's going to change there. I think he's going to be on the wrong side of a decision here again. So that's my conviction there. People might think I'm crazy and talk shit or whatever, and that's fine. But, that's what I think. So anyway, hope you like this prediction. It's been, not as short and sweet as I thought it would be. There's a lot to talk about all of these fighters. I still have some stuff that I want to look into. But, take it for what it is. These are my leans. Make sure you add us to Facebook, James D. Wiley, and Facebook.com/best MMA picks. Add us to YouTube. There's a subscriber. Click subscribe now. Twitter, that's where we post all of our plays on Twitter live just before the card starts. And we also have Instagram now, where we're posting a social media play. We post our top plays, one to each social media. And on our last 4 social media plays, they've been 10-unit, $1,000 plays, and we're 4-0 on our last 4. So, free money right there. We don't charge anything, and it's 4-0 the last 4 social media plays, monster plays. Those were our largest plays on the card. So we should have some more big ones for you on this card. Very excited to see these fights, and hope you guys all enjoy them. And everybody have a great weekend. Stay safe out there. Thanks for tuning in. And make sure you, like I said, make sure you click subscribe. Please, please. I do like the discussion. We had some really good discussion from a lot of different sharps, MMA sharps, on our last video. I really appreciated a lot of the input from people. There were some guys that called some big underdog plays, and I like guys like that to bounce stuff off of, that have some fight experience and that have a lot of experience in the MMA. So appreciate a lot of those comments. We can all work as a team together, and I like that community, and hopefully we can continue that. Thank you to everybody who promoted my video and that retweeted, that posted it on their websites and their WordPresses. Thank you to the people who gave it thumbs up. We had like 30 thumbs up. You guys are awesome, and I hope to continue to bring lots of winners to you guys. So let's work together, and we'll see you at the cash window. Everybody have a good week.